I also don't mind if the way they deliver their lines isn't like exactly how I wrote it. I mean, maybe there'll be like a line or like a couple lines, and I'm like, no, 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 word for word, I really want something like this. But most of the time, I like to have give them freedom to because then if they're going off in a different route from what's written on the page, it's probably because it's more natural for them. And if it's more natural, it'll look more natural. So I'm usually for it.
Hey, hi Elle. How you doing?
Uh, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being a part of this. Very
Oh,
glad to talk to you. We really loved your film Every Other Weekend that played last LFF. It's a great treat. Can we talk about your starting point of filmmaking? Like, was there a point where you knew like you loved film, and or was there a point where you realized this is what I want to do growing up?
Um, the first job I ever wanted, ever, was to work at Blockbuster. And I don't know how it looks working there anymore, but um I I think I was yeah, probably around six because my family and I we went to Blockbuster all the time and I would see the employees doing nothing but watching movies and I was like, this is the best setup ever. And quickly, like throughout my life, I never actually considered going into film as like an option. I explored a lot of other things. I was interested in marine biology. That's what I went to school for. And I didn't really try film production until college. And once I was actually got an opportunity to be behind the camera, I was like, this is this is exactly what I wanted to do. I don't know, it was just never it never even really crossed my mind as a possibility. And then I kind of just got thrown into it by chance. And then I loved it and I got hooked. And for the past 3 years or so, I've just been trying to make as much as I can through my school. And I love it. And it was right from the like right as soon as I started, I was like, this is what I want to do for sure. So yeah. The blockbuster was a little that was a hint at the beginning, but I just, didn't quite listen to that until I was a little older.
Yeah. So like premeditated was like actually your first like film you actually worked on?
Yes, that was I had been on a set before that, but mostly as like a PA or a production designer. I'm in a film that was in a film fraternity called DECA, and I pitched premeditated to them. They funded it and then gave me a crew, and I just told them I wanted to direct it, even though I didn't really even know what a director role was responsible for. But I wanted to just throw myself into it. So premeditated was really my first jab at it.
How do you
Um,
find DECA? And like what did that mean for you finding that community?
um, I found them during COVID. Uh, that was definitely an essential part of it because I don't know if I would have found them if COVID hadn't happened, just because I was looking for that community. And I don't know, I went to school for biology and like interested in marine science, but I I don't I knew I liked movies and I was like, I'll join a club that, or a fraternity that is also interested in movies. And then it was really nice to just be around a lot of like-minded people, and they were very supportive. And they obviously gave me a lot of opportunities to do what I wanted to do and make my movies, and that I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that stressful like directing so early into like your like career? Like or is that like a good challenge for you? Were you ready for it at the time?
Yeah, I I was
Because
pretty brazen. I don't know. I was
it
like
turned out well, but I don't
it,
know if that was a scary experience or not.
it I think the all the cast were my friends, which was, made things easier. The two DPs were both my friends, like the whole crew, like it felt just it really low pressure, and I knew everyone that was working on it so closely. And that was like such a special experience in like an independent filmmaking. That's like one of the best parts of it is just being close with your crew members like that, or having the ability to be. And I think they just having that comfort level on the set made things way easier for me to just feel confident. And I asked for help all the time. I was in no way was I not asking questions. I was asking a lot of questions. And my two DPs, Skylar and Lily, like they had a lot more experience than I did, and they were really kind and um, welcomed all my, you know, curiosities or whatever. And so it was really just the community that helped me have that confidence making it.
That rocks.
It does.
Um,
Yeah.
how much you write and direct your films, right?
Yes.
How like what was the for premeditated? How long did you spend writing it, or like you're saying the community? Did you kind of pitch it and then you had to write it like fast, like for them, or
So I actually pitched it twice to Decca. The first time it did not get picked, but I'd never written a script before, and I think I wrote it on Google Docs, and it was like formatted horribly. But I was into sketch comedy in high school, and I kind of thought of it like that. And I love the movie Masterminds, and I'm really into The Office. And I was like, I kind of wanted to combine the two, kind of just having these main characters that are like idiots getting by a little bit, but kind of has like an underlying, it's kind of a relatable feel. I don't know.
yeah, it's like a
Um,
demented office with like movie
yeah,
money. Yeah,
which a handful of people have experienced.
yeah.
But yeah, I wrote it, pitched it. I didn't get picked the first time, and then I was when because they make a film every like semester, so they produce one every fall and spring, and I like pitched it in the spring or fall, and I think yeah, fall. Didn't get picked, but that was a good experience for me to write a script, just go to a pitch meeting where I'd never pitched anything before, and they do a table read. And that was just good for me to just try.
And they
Um,
they table read everything, even if it's not picked.
yep.
How's that?
Scary.
Yeah,
But it's so awesome to hear it kind of come to life. And I don't think, table reading is one of the best things I can do for my script. I try to table read it all the time with my roommates, with my friends, whatever. So as much as it was like, oh God, people will be like acting this out, it was still also really satisfying to just hear it out loud. And it shows the problems as well. It's much easier to hear them than like read them, I think. Um, and yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking, but then the second pitch meeting, I made like a lookbook, and you know, I used Final Draft and it was formatted correctly. I made like a lot of improvements last time based on the feedback from last pitch meeting. And I don't know if it's really constructed in like a classic storytelling way, but it was still something I really was passionate about, and I'm really happy they picked it and it got made. But
I want to circle back to this question later, but I was wondering about like humor in filmmaking. Humor is
oh
like such a hard thing to get right, and especially with filmmaking, you have to get it like every step of the way. Like you have to get it writing, you have to get it on like the day, and like editing. Like you could mess up a joke by editing. Like
yeah.
how is that hard, or like what's the process of like maintaining the humor? Like you know, maybe that's dumb.
No, it's not. It's just it's a hard thing to do, and so it's a hard question to answer. Um, I think I struggle with that because I think tonally I strive for like dramedies. Those are like my favorite to watch, and like what I strive to make. I've tried to make pure dramas before, and they don't. usually work out as just pure. There's always some comedy that slips in. I think that's just my nature. But I mean, I struggle with that tonally too because you don't, you want to keep it balanced in the right way and not be too jarring for people. Um, I don't know. I might have to think on it more because
Yeah.
it's just kind of trying to sprinkle it throughout
Yeah.
without.
Which is, I feel like you're not making it like absurd. It's like the humor is from the characters. It doesn't like lose that.
Yes, I think it's not like a but
Yeah.
kind of humor.
Like I mean, like the setup, it's kind of funny to want to like kill your boss, but then it's like they're not like breaking their characters. It's like this is who they are, you know?
Yes. Um, I think I love the peculiarity of a lot of my characters, and I like them to not be like cracking jokes. I just like you're totally spot on, actually. I like them to just be who they are, and you're like, this is a this is like because I know so many people like that, that that's just who they genuinely are, and they're like sometimes the funniest people you know. So.
Yeah, and the dynamic between them.
Yeah, that's where the
Yeah,
humor comes in. I think also bringing in as many different characters as possible who clash, and the humor coming from that is my favorite.
yeah, um, yeah. So that was for Deca, and then your other films are like for production classes. Is that correct or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they've all been production classes. Yeah, they have.
Yeah. How's that? Because it's just one semester for I think, like Pinheads, When Woman, and Every Other Weekend are all one semester each.
Yeah.
Do you like come to those courses like with scripts already, or if a semester is such a small amount of time?
Yeah. No, so they actually, I think, yeah, I wrote all of them while I was in the class because there are like certain restrictions. Wing Woman, for example, I wasn't allowed to use dialogue. That's why they don't speak at any point in the movie. There's like a couple rules, especially about like length of script and stuff like, there's restrictions that I wasn't totally aware of until I was in the class. So I couldn't really prep anything until I was already in it. But I think when I have an idea, it's I write it in like a day, or two. But it's just but if I don't have an idea, it's really hard to make something. But as soon as I have like a little spark, that's nonstop. And I think getting a prompt with like some restrictions definitely gets me going. Like if I just had an open ending, like write a script, I'd be like, oh God. But I think having like it has to be 8 pages, it has to be two characters, the one location, stuff like that. Um, Weirdly, it kind of gets the wheels turning sooner. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I think yeah, you can see like your scope is like really well done where it's like there's some short films, no offense to other short films, there's some where it's like you can tell this is a pitch for like a feature and it's like this is kind of rushed. But it's like some of yours could be expanded. I think Every Other Weekend could be like a great like feature, but it's like they are shorts. It's like you get the whole story and it's all like I don't like I'm not like, oh, I wish this was I want to watch it again, but it's like this is perfectly wrapped up. Like you like limit the scope like well, I think.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely don't think that far ahead.
No, it's
Making
like
something.
the short film is its own thing.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
totally different from making features or writing features. And I think um I especially like in my production classes, I've had a decent amount of pushback just on my style for shorts because I like to linger for a long time in one place with these characters and like stay with them, which like with the feature it's kind of harder to pull that off, but for a short, you know, I like to do that. One of my films that's not released yet, but it's in post-production right now. It's called Critical Darlings, and it's about this book club. And the whole thing, it's like 11 minutes and it's all like they're all seated for most of it because it's a book club. And it's like one of my favorite things I've ever made, but I had so much pushback making it because it's going against, it's not like exploring different locations and editing out here, I don't know. But with the short, I feel like you can you can be a little bit more experimental like that. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, can we go into specifically, maybe just for time, about every other weekend and maybe break down
Yes,
that process more clearly?
totally.
Um, did you write for the location in mind for this one?
No, we
Okay.
scouted the locations afterwards,
Okay.
after we got picked, because um, basically how the structure of the class works also is like not everybody's pitches get made. So, we have a whole class, everyone has to pitch twice in the class. Um, and then the class votes on certain pitches, and then everybody gets divided into different crews. So I didn't even know if mine was totally gonna get made, so I didn't prep for locations or anything ahead of time. But I was lucky it got picked. And then my producer she just was scouting constantly for stuff, and then we just happened upon the fishing spot because we were at this park and there was a guy fishing there, and I was like, well, there you go,
Oh,
perfect.
it's not like near the house?
No,
Oh,
it's
wow. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, still near Boston, but yeah, they were very far apart.
Yeah. It feels like it's like down the hill, you know. I feel like it
Yeah,
works out. Yeah.
yeah.
How was like the casting process for that for such a short amount of time?
Oh yeah. I found Jay Dunnigan on Backstage, and I've also I'd seen him work before in a directing class, and he's so first of all, he's so fun to work with, and he's really good improviser, which I love. I love. I know that it's like a divided thing, but for me as a director, like if my actor wants to like take a character, take what I put on, this paper and just run with it and kind of do their thing, and they know the character well enough to just like do spin-offs or like continue the scene after I wrote it, I am like ecstatic. Like that's the best case scenario for me. And that's Jay. Like Jay ad lib like he could improvise, and Lydia could match him easily too. And she's actually at BU. She was at my school and she's in the acting program. And I actually found her through like my professor's recommendation, and she read it once for me and I was like, we're good. Uh, I loved it. She's just a natural. Um, and they looked like they could be related in my opinion.
Yeah.
Uh, Lydia, she made a comment at one point that she's like, he kind of looks like my dad. And I was like, perfect. That works out.
Yes.
I know. Score. Um, but yeah, I definitely was kind of lucky, but Massachusetts has like a really good hub of actors. There's a really good talent there. So
Yeah. Is Jay
um,
like local, like non-union, or is he
I,
SAG?
I think he's SAG.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I was gonna say for just the time of it, did you have time to rehearse, or is it more like on the day you're just kind of like running through it and working through it?
Um, we, I think we had one rehearsal just to try, to have them, first of all, meet, um, and, get to know each other. Jay's like a jokester, and Lydia's they were just like bouncing off each other the whole time. And it was great. And like they would even, I mean, this was unprompted. Like I wasn't even telling them to do this, but like in the rehearsal and like even when we were on set, this continued. In between takes, they would just keep talking as their characters.
Wow.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I shouldn't cut anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep rolling because I want all this good stuff. I mean, they're both really creative and they can think on their feet really well. And like the final shot in every other weekend when they're packing up, completely improvised. All the dialogue is completely improvised. They just like kept going. And I mean, what a treat for me. Um, yeah, so one rehearsal and then uh made sure they understood the beats and motivations and didn't do saved all the nitpicky stuff for on set, but just kind of went over the main arcs and stuff like that
Mm.
and just made sure they got along, which they did. Yeah.
You were just saying how like if someone wants to improv or like change something, you're like, yes. But like, do you like change the script based on the rehearsal at all? Like, do you add anything there or tweak it, or do you more just like leave space? Like, okay, maybe they'll change here.
Yeah, I did make a change after the rehearsal, a couple changes. Mostly because I think I'm not an East Coaster and like, both of them are. And I think there was just some dialogue that Jay just mentioned. He was like, "Can we tweak this because this sounds more like I'm from Massachusetts." And I was like, "Yeah, because you know that. I wouldn't know that." And um, so there was like some tweaks like that that were made. And then I'm not really like a couple lines. I understand this makes editing a little bit harder and like continuity and stuff, but I also don't mind if the way they deliver their lines isn't like exactly how I wrote it. I mean, maybe there'll be like a line or like a couple lines, and I'm like, no, 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 word for word, I really want something like this. But most of the time, I like to give them freedom to because then if they're going off in a different route from what's written on the page, it's probably because it's more natural for them. And if it's more natural, it'll look more natural. So I'm usually for it. Unless it changes the entire trajectory of what the scene is. But yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, going back to like humor, like of the, I've only seen your films that are available on YouTube, so I haven't seen like the two that are not completed yet or out there. But like this, every other weekend's like your most serious film, I would say. But there's
Yeah.
still so much humor, of course.
Yeah.
It's like it both like it makes me laugh, but it also like breaks my heart. Like what they're like they can't communicate. It's like it's so funny that he's doing the crossword, but it's also like so sad. Like
Yeah.
how is that balancing that? Or like playing the awkwardness of it and stuff. Like on the
Yeah.
steps is like, oh my god, this is brutal.
I know. Um, I love awkwardness in movies. I love it so much. I know people don't like it, but I love it. I love it so much. And I love the like pregnant pauses. I love the like I eat that up. But
Yeah,
I have people who hold me accountable to not linger in them too long, but I do like it a lot. And every other weekend was like my attempt at like a complete drama. And obviously there's still humor in it, which
that's human. That's how it is.
it is, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah. But I realized afterwards, I was like, I think that's just who I think that's more my life. Like there's plenty of things that go wrong or are tough, but I think having a lighthearted spin makes things more digestible for me day to day. And I think I apply that to my movies. And every other weekend made me realize that because I was like, I'm gonna try to be serious for once. Um, and then there was still just moments of humor that just come out. And I think it's just something I can't avoid at this point.
yeah.
Uh, But
I think it's a good
I like,
impulse to chase. I think though, because it's like sometimes, especially you see like a lot of student films, and they're very like serious. It's like here I'm working through my like my parents, but it's like it's that
yeah,
awkward thing with your parents. Like if you have issues with your parents, which a lot of people do, it's like it's still awkward. It's like not you never say the right thing. You don't come to the conversation ready, and it's like there's
yeah.
something very like that's what I say. The different it makes me like laugh, but then also like really breaks my heart. Like when she's like, you can tell she doesn't like fishing. Actually, like it's like maybe I shouldn't have asked for this.
No, yeah. And I think there's like as tough as those situations are and however heartbreaking it is like objectively kind of funny because she
Yeah.
put herself in that situation and now she hates it. And people, I mean, we've all done that at least a couple times, you know? Um, yeah, it's something I'm like embracing now. I'm realizing that like that's okay. I've had, you know, pushback before that like humor can be like distracting or like sugarcoating um from like the meat of a story, but I've kind of decided to push against that. I think that it's more lifelike. So,
Yeah. And I mean, it's not a skill issue. Like, I feel like it's clear that you can do it. Like the fridge scene is like really upsetting. And it's
yeah.
like, it's straight. I mean, it does almost get me when I think about like the magnets. Like, that's like the funny thing about it. It's like they're gone fishing. But for the most part, that is like, oh my God, like this is so sad. And it's like
Yeah,
played straight.
totally. Totally.
I just love shout out the set design of that one. The magnets and like the fish on the wall is great. It's like this is this
Yeah.
guy's whole life, and like, they have like the beer magnet.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
his mug says size matters with a fish
yeah,
on it. I don't know if it's not like it's kind of hidden, it's harder to pick up, but that was my favorite detail for sure.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah, Isabella was my PD and that was also her house. So
Oh, okay.
like we got that location because of the crew that was assigned and she offered up her house and it was super cute and it had I love the yellow walls and yeah, and she got all the fish stuff. It was great.
So you're saying that in the classes, it's like they shoot like the you pitch, then you get the director, and then you're like assigned a crew. So have you not shared crews through your productions, or is it like you just have a lot of the same classmates, so you do share like crews?
Um, I share a lot of similar classmates across and usually like so how BU is structured is just like you have a screen language class, which is still a product you like make films in it, but it's more intro level. And then there's production one, production two, production three. And usually as you're going up them, your classmates are as well. Um, and I think I've usually had assigned crew when I was in production three this fall and made my thesis. Uh, you kind of you got to like do like a mixer, like you kind of got to run it, like meet everybody, the directors all got to like sit down because there was a lot of people in production three, like that thesis class that I hadn't met. And you kind of get to go and talk about your vision for the film and talk to each possible editor, DP, production designer, producer, and kind of just figure out who's your best match. And that was really cool to kind of pick each other, if that makes sense. Like everyone on my crew wanted to be on my crew, and I wanted all of them to be there. And not that that wasn't the case in previous classes, but just having like a teacher just assign it, no conversations had, is a little bit different. But I've been fortunate enough that everybody I've worked with has always been super kind, respectful, appreciative, and talented. So,
Yeah. Do you have a favorite of like the like pre-production, production, or post? Like, do you have a preference between them? It's kind of like it's tough, but
yeah. Um,
because you edit your films too, right? For the most
yes.
part. Yeah.
I've grown to love editing. It's like I didn't think I would like it because I'm not super technologically inclined. But I learned it and I had a professor who was like who showed me what good editing looks like and how I really was really I really didn't know the power of an edit as much in my earlier stuff. And then he really showed me just like, you know, what holding on a cut looks like and how when you cut to another shot, how impactful that can be if you time it right. And like you don't have to be on somebody's face when they're speaking. You can cut to the other, show the other person. Like these are, you know, things I didn't, without being told them, I kind of, when I was first trying to edit, maybe didn't really come super naturally to me. But once I got that, it unlocked like a whole new world. And now I love editing and I love that it's like, the last phase of storytelling, and I've found beats editing that I didn't just know were there when I was directing, which is like so cool, especially if it really helps your film. And I really have grown to love the editing process, and now I really look up to a lot of directors who edit their own work. Um, it's I've grown to love it, but for the longest time, being on set has always been my favorite. I think because it's the most social, it's very engaging. You're on your feet, you have to think fast, I like that energy. I can get a little bit burned out. I have to be a little bit more strategic about, not going like 100% constantly. But that's always been my favorite is being on set. Pre-production is probably the hardest for me. Um, Prepping is tough. Um, when I making a shot list, I think it's just you can go into it being like, oh my God, this has to be exact and perfect and but then when I'm on set I'm like well, we don't need this those are the decisions where I'm like I really make the probably the biggest decisions are on set, but I make them on the fly and I just have to go off instinct. So pre-production is scarier for me because you're just like sitting in it and you're just
It's everything.
yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of been my relationship with all those phases, but post has grown on me a lot.
Yeah. As you've like grown as an editor, do you think that's like influenced like the way you operate on set?
100%. Because I'm just far more aware of the edit and just being aware of how you want to edit the film will just make everything on set, I think, a little bit more efficient. That's where I've found it helpful. Um, yeah, I think it comes through with the efficiency the most. Story-wise, I think I kind of allow myself to figure out a little bit in the edit, and like if I can find new beats or craft new moments, sometimes I like to do that too. Sometimes the actors give me something that I didn't plan in pre-production, and I'm like, oh, I love this. I want to keep it. Um, but yeah, I think it gives me just a little bit more insight when I direct, and that's been really helpful.
Mm.
Yeah,
And you've produced other stuff before, right? You've been a producer on other projects.
I
Is
have.
that
Yeah.
how is that? Like, is that a learning experience that's like separate, or
Um, Yeah, I don't I think it was important for me to try producing a couple t so I produced Desired was probably my biggest one that I produced. That was a grad student film and I kind of got into the class randomly. They were like they didn't have enough people apply and I told them, I know you need assistant directors. I haven't assistant directed, but I'll do it. Like I'd love to learn. And they were like, "Oh, well, we actually need producers." And I was like, "Oh, can I co-produce?" And because I've never produced before, and they were like, "Yeah, maybe." And then I just produced a project basically by myself. But I had one of the writer and one of the directors, Angel, was like she should get a co-producer credit. She was really helpful. Like I definitely didn't feel like it was all on me and like I was on my own helping that, but I think it was important for me to do that so that I can be so much more appreciative of my producers and realize I don't think it's something that comes naturally for me and not necessarily something that I love to do. I kind of do it out of like necessity sometimes for my own, especially like location scouting, which is like one of my favorite parts of pre-production probably is location scouting. Um, but yeah, I think I kind of learned that I want to veer I away a little bit from producing. I think not having any involvement in the creative aspect can be really like tough for me, but I have taken a liking to assistant directing a lot, just because you have to anticipate the director's needs, which I feel like I can understand, and you're also on your feet just as much and stuff like that. But producing gives you a whole lot of perspective, that's for sure.
Yeah. So like
Um,
AD is like your favorite role on set other than director.
yeah,
I'm not trying to lure you away from directing. I love I want you to direct more. But the question is
yeah.
more like what other roles have you found like enjoyment in like taking on set?
I really like assistant directing. I
Yeah.
like it because it still has that same energy on set. Like I'm still getting that, like you're talking to everybody and you're moving around and you're checking in on everyone. Is everybody okay? Is everybody fine? And there's like a level, your priority is efficiency. And I feel like even as a director, I think about efficiency a lot. Um, and I think as an AD, just being the right hand woman to, whoever is directing is something like I'm very proud to do. And uh yeah, I've actually really I AD'd a music video like 2 weekends ago, and I never worked on a music video before, but and I was and I kind of got into it. The poor previous AD got like a tonsil
Oh,
problem. I hope he's fine. But
yeah.
they like told me the night before, like, you've been bumped from PA to AD. And I was like, holy, okay. Um, and so I didn't really plot the schedule as much, but just even being on, yeah, I really like it. So that's for sure. If I'm on a friend set or anything, I think that's where I can contribute the most for sure.
Mhm. What do you think was like for maybe for specifically like every other weekend? Like, was there like a lesson learned specifically from that that you have taken away and applied to your project since then?
Um, Definitely. First of all, I'm just trying to think of some examples. Um, I think every other weekend was first the project where like one of my professors showed me prop showed me what editing for the story looks like a little bit. So that was really enlightening in that aspect. And then at least, you know, on set, I mean, I learned so much from everything I've ever done, because something always goes wrong or doesn't go as expected. And but I'm trying to remember specifically for every other weekend, because I think it's been like maybe a year or more now since I filmed it. But
You didn't say I'm not. It's hard to boil it down. You didn't mention like it's
yeah.
more asking for like for other student filmmakers like any like however quaint piece of advice you've like
Um,
realized like maybe even from your more recent projects like anything that's like this might feel like even like obvious to say, you
yeah.
know.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, there's so many things. Um, as far as like directing goes, I've learned I've learned so much about working with actors, I feel like after each project I've made. And if there's one thing I've totally have learned, is that just each actor is completely different, and how you direct them has to be completely different, and like to an individual level. And I think that's for me, that's it's so important to really get in time with your actors before you get on set. To just build that relationship with them where you can establish a communication that works and get to know each other's tendencies, and kind of anticipate kind of what you'll have to tackle or what you won't when you're on set. I think having a lot of time with them, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be rehearsals. I think just like my thesis film is about a 12-year-old girl, and my actress who is 12, her name's Nola. She's amazing. We met, oh my gosh, I have no many time. I don't even know how many times. And like a lot of it was rehearsing, with child actors. That's, it's important to get a lot of rehearsal time in. but also I just wanted to get to know her, and I feel like that helped be like our relationship. Like I'm still like really close with her and her family, and I love getting like updates from her mom about how she's doing and how school's going and all that. And the relationships, having those really good relationships with actors, so you can even work with them again, is fantastic. But also, I don't know, like I think there's something to be said about really finding a bond with your actors before you're even on set. That's like maybe one of like the most rewarding things that I've experienced is like making those relationships with people. Um, yeah, that's what I'd say for now. I
Uh,
might come up with more later, but
yeah,
that's one that comes to mind for sure.
we can do a short episode of like, guys, this is what you need. Like, how was
Yeah.
working with a child actor compared to your previous experience with actors?
She was, first of all, she was like incredible and like incredibly professional. I was like mind blown. I was like, and she just worked really hard, and I felt like we established a way for me to just be like totally honest in a supportive way. She came from a theater background, and so, theater actors can tend to be really big, and it's just about like bringing that in and containing it a little bit. And I showed her like scenes from films that she could watch, and we talked about like keeping things a little bit on the smaller side. And eventually, like on set, I could just tell her like I needed a little small, and like we eventually established a communication that was like really honest, but she didn't. I think you never want to be like, I think because we established this bond and understanding with each other, she didn't get discouraged like ever. It was the best. I like because you never want to discourage your act. I mean, that's like the worst possible thing you could do.
Yeah.
But I think so. Getting in that time beforehand was really helpful. And then she was really professional. I couldn't believe it. She was so good. And I had to work with a lot of other kids because it was shot most like half the film was shot in like a middle school, and I had the actual middle schoolers from that middle school as extras and side characters and such. They have a lot of energy, but good thing is I can match it, and again, I would find myself getting burnt out a little bit, but gosh, they're so fun to work with. And I mean, we're young, but we're not that young, And there's things that they think of that at their age make sense that I would be like, what are you talking about? Like, there's just like things they just want to do or say that, like, I don't know, like, I feel like try at there even though I'm 22 and I don't feel that far away from them age wise. I remember middle school. I remember what that was like. It still has been enough time where like they're gonna like encouraging them to make their own creative decisions was like the best decision ever that I've made because they brought stuff to the table I would never even think of. Like just like lines they were saying, like hair flips and like create like they just had so much spunk to them that was really just their own personalities shining through. And that was just really special. Like I feel like and they're all like eager. Like I mean, having a kid like a kid's so excited to be on set. They just want to do fun, like they just want to have fun and they come up with great ideas. That was, I think, encouraging child actors to be a part of the process is really helpful, A, for them to be engaged, and B, you'll probably get something really good from it because it'll feel more authentic and it'll add a little personality, a little spunk. So I loved it. I think I know it's not for everyone because we did have to like corral, it's like herding cats a little bit, especially because they were on their own stomping grounds, right? They were in their own
Yeah.
middle school.
That's
So they were very comfortable and you gotta, but I was really grateful for like my AD, my producer, who were able to just like keep it all under control, but are also really good with kids and everything. And they're not like kids, you know? They're still like old enough to be very respectful on set and understand the process and things like that. So it was really fun. I loved it. After that, I was like, I could totally work with like younger actors again because I don't know. I think it kind of letting my playful side out even more. So
Yeah. It's
yeah.
like the Jay like adding on a Massachusetts thing to the nth degree. It's like here's this new wave of children saying they're whatever. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
is there a risk of like maybe no one will understand what they're talking about, or is that's like no, like if you don't get it, you don't get it. Like this is we just have to
Honest,
act like depict how they are.
yeah, I think, if you don't get it, you don't get it because it's their world. And if you
Yeah.
don't understand it, that's perfect, Like this is like that's honestly maybe best case scenario is that they're so in their own world and like it's coming across totally authentically and like people are like, what are they saying? And that would be great.
Would
That'd be
you
great.
ask them to explain things, or would you at some point let them go and be like, whatever you want to say?
There, so that we filmed a bathroom scene. So the premise of my thesis is like a 12-year-old girl gets her first period at middle school, which is the worst thing that ever happens to like every girl has like the first period story that's like just terrible. But there's always humor laced into that. But then the drama comes in, her mom's out of the picture, her mom left, and she's kind of stuck with her dad. And she doesn't really know how to tell him. She already lost one parent. She's afraid of changing her relationship with the other. And she's also a little bit more of a tomboy character, and her dad can connect on that level. So she feels like this is like a weirdly feminizing thing to bring up that she's kind of scared. But she has her period in the bathroom, and like there's like popular girls, who are like all in the bathroom, and she wants to go out to like the pad and tampon machine, but she has to like find her way through all these girls who are like chatting and chewing gum and looking at her like. And uh I just had them chat about whatever they wanted. I mean they're Gen Alpha, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Because Gen Z goes far, but I think it's like now it's over.
yeah, I think I think they're Gen Alpha,
Yeah.
but
I think anyone below like 15 now is alpha.
yes, okay, so they're Gen Alpha and they were the funniest. I can't because I mean they all have phones. They grew up kind of with the internet and they've they understand meme culture, they understand all that kind of stuff, but they've developed their own vocabulary and like slang and my production design, mine, it's like loosely production design wise is like kind of early 2000s-esque. I don't usually like to be specific on my times. I kind of just like everything to just kind of feel not now, but also not be super time specific. That's just like a me thing. But um, my production designer got like an old flip phone that she got off like eBay that like she didn't think worked. And the girls like hacked into it and found like old emails and old messages. They learned how to use the camera and they were like taking selfies on this flip phone. And I was like, I was just astounded. Also, I will say I was slightly intimidated directing them because they were just so cool. I was like
Yeah.
trying to match their level and be like, hey guys, like for this you just kind of give her a look and you're just gonna kind of gossip on the side and they'd be like, okay. And I'm like, I felt like I was back in middle school. I'm like, did they think that did they like what I was saying?
Yeah.
Like it was,
Ask your
um,
AD, like, go ask them if they like me. Like, don't.
um, and I mean, they were so good and it was so great. I just think it was just really, they were doing like TikTok dances and like, it was pretty awesome. But they just were always having fun, and that's the best. I like the vibe they brought to set was really fun. But yeah, I definitely learned a lot for sure. And they had some zingers. They had some zinger lines. One of my girls, like she improv'd a line. There's a crazy one of the popular girls says something like, um, Tiffany, I saw like Tiffany making out with blah 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 under the bleachers, like gag me with a spoon. And which was written in the script, but the other girl responds, ew, and she's like ugly too. She completely made it up. And I was like, I mean, I kept it. I loved it. But I was
Yeah.
like, ouch. Like they just came up with that on their
Yeah.
own. I was like, I wouldn't want to be on your bad side. That's like
Yeah.
that's but yeah. And so again, they're really creative and I mean, they have great stuff up their sleeves. So it's good to just let them, bring it out.
Yeah.
So,
They can tap into that middle school cruelty well.
oh
Like,
yeah, I mean, it's real.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is more of a this is like out of my depth, but it's like a selfish question. I saw something about admitted
Oh
on your
yeah.
pages. That was like television, like a series type of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Um,
How is it working in something that's not just like its own thing, like episodic thing?
yeah, so it's like that was definitely, so that was the only first and only thing I've done that's like episodic. And it was a mini series. I think there's 5 episodes. We shot all those episodes in one semester. So, and they're all like 20 to 30 minutes long. And so we spent basically the amount of time you spend shooting a feature and our spare time on top of school. And it was crazy. I think I made pinheads that same semester. And oh my God, it was something so um these 3 girls kind of brought it to life. Um, Maggie is the showrunner, and she saw Premeditated, so she asked me to come on as a director. And it was like a great opportunity. I mean, at the time, I'd only directed Premeditated, and afterwards, I was like, I need to do something else. Like that was the best. And this was like a clear opportunity to jump on. And she said she wanted to take a lot of influence from like Parks and Rec, The Office, at least stylistically. And I was like, I love those shows. Totally. Let's do it. Um, and yeah, they kind of like made it pretty independently. I think maybe some of the funding came in from BU and we shot on BU's campus. But it was definitely really strange, to kind of first direct something I hadn't written at all. Like I was not part of the writing process. And I enjoyed it. Like I learned that can actually be really fun because it's a good exercise for me to think about directing something that maybe stylistically wouldn't be something I would write. Um, but I don't know, TV kind of weirds me out, at least on the creative side, because it's hard I don't know, maybe I just haven't like kind of given it enough of a try, but just the way that it ends in and of itself, but it has to push you to watch the next one, and then everything keeps going. A part of me likes film because I like that it has to start and end in one sitting. Like I like that. But it was a really good experience. And also most of the people on the cast and crew were again my peers and friends. So even though we were putting in a lot of work in outside of school that we weren't getting paid for, we weren't getting credit for, it was still really I learned a lot. A lot. That put me through the ringer. I was like, just because there also wasn't a lot of prep work. So a lot of me and the DP, Andy Bay, who's incredible, he and I would we just show up to set and then we'd be like, okay, we're gonna do this, 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 that. Like it taught me how to like think on the fly, 100%. So it was a great experience. I mean, I think all the episodes are on YouTube. But yeah, it was fun. I think it won like best comedy episode at the Houston Film Festival. So again, I'm not really involved in the producing work. You know, but it was really fun to direct for sure.
How was the writer of like the episodes like with you on set while you're directing,
So
or
it was really interesting because the head writer was Serena Otta, who's actually one of the cast members. And then a lot of the other cast helped write as well. So everybody who was like acting in it wrote it basically.
Mhm.
And if I had questions, I could just ask the cast.
Yeah.
What's good about it, having a cast that were involved in the writing process is they understand what their motivations are, they understand what they want, they know all that already. So for me, a lot of what my directing input went towards was the camera, um, which was fun, like at least shooting it like mockumentary style with like the pans and the zooms and that
Yeah.
was it was fun to do that because uh but yeah, I think that's where I really mostly focused. But it was convenient to have cast that were involved and
Yeah.
know the
It's like
writing.
you're really actually capturing it as best you can. Like it's like the train's going. I better catch this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think that's most of. Oh, this is the thing. I remember. I really appreciate your end titles for all your films. Are really great.
thank
Do
you.
you like how much time do you think about like they're all like I mean every other weekend like you were saying was improv and
Hmm.
that but like thinking about like the end credits to like Wing Woman and like Pinheads or and Premeditated is like hilarious with all the office stuff.
Yeah.
Like when did like when you're at a certain point in production you're like, oh, I have an idea for like the credits. Are you thinking about it as like a whole like that? Or do you kind of figure that out like in the edit?
I figure out what I want to do with the credits usually before I even shoot. Um, I think almost all of them end. I forget the last shot of Premeditated. I know we have like bloopers at the end
Yeah.
of Premeditated. Um, but I think, every other weekend's a wide, pulling out on the two of them. Wing Woman, same thing, and Pinheads is the same thing. I really like ending on a wide, but I think credits are so important tonally and like stylistically. Like I think they get snubbed a little bit or like ignored a lot at this stage. And maybe I care about them too much, but I think I really like designing them. I like to make sure that I have like fun with it. And I think it it adds a more professional touch, and B, it can kind of extend your film beyond, it kind of brands it a little bit. It kind of shows, it's like putting the feel of your film into like a font choice and color. It's like PD. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like that one like Soderbergh quote or something where he's like, "If you don't have a good font on your film, I'm not gonna watch it." And it's like exactly like you'll see a lot of like student films where it's like the title's like Last Thought and it's like has no connection. But yeah, like you like finish your shorts and you see the title, it's like oh yeah, it's like an uplifting thing. It's like oh we did
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and it all like comes together.
Totally. Yeah. Um, I think it's fun. And I love finishing on my wides, and that's a good opportunity to have credits. I think I only did that with every other weekend. Oh no, I didn't premeditate it. I don't know. Premeditate's a montage, and I think with different
Yeah, you get
people's,
like the calendar and like the clock and like
yes,
everything.
all the mundane things that exist in the office.
Yeah,
Um,
like the
yeah.
card.
Yep.
Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. I think for premeditated, I plan the credits out beforehand. And then with my other stuff, I love finishing on wides a lot. I think it's like all the old movies I watch where they, fade out and the two characters walk away and they're just like talking to each other and you can't
I mean
even hear their
that's Wing
voice.
Woman.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yep. And
Um,
yeah, totally.
yeah. When do you decide like the music for the end credits? Like, is that early on? Like, was there an idea for like a song you almost ended like every other weekend with before you found that ending?
Um, so for Pinheads is all my favorite songs. Basically,
Yeah.
I had a professor call it a music video, but I, it
It's
was totally mine.
it's soundtrack has score, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and also I didn't make Pinheads to submit anywhere. I never submitted it. It was just for me. and like my friends, and it was so fun. Like I love that movie. It
Yeah,
has a very special place in my heart. It was again made before I knew how to edit properly, so it's a little long, but
no,
I
it
I don't
works.
mind living in the world of it. Um,
I agree.
Thanks. But yeah, that for that music, I kind of just chose my favorite songs at the end that worked. Fly Like an Eagle, Steve Miller. I was like, I knew I wanted that. I think Skylar wears an eagle chain. Or no, Yellowstay. I don't know, one of the two. They wear like an eagle chain. I was like, yeah, Fly Like an Eagle's happening 100%. And then for Wing Woman, AF Way is one of my favorite songs. It's the ending song. Serena, one of the actresses. So I've worked with Serena Otto a lot. She's one of my dear friends. She's my roommate. She's an actor, she's a writer, she's a director, she does everything. She showed me Witchy Woman. That was great. But AF Way, I was like, AF that song is such a run off and dance song. Like I knew that before I even came up with the Wing Woman idea. I always thought AF Way, if I ever have characters run off and dance, it's gonna be to AF Way. And yeah, I don't know. I think I just have a hub of music that's on my, I mean, I wish I could use any music I wanted, and not have
Yeah,
to pay so much, but it's pretty expensive. But for Critical Darlings, the book club film, I worked with a composer for the first time, and that was really special too. Like it is really cool to maybe veer from like already established music and like make something new for your film specifically. Like that's so special. Um, and I really enjoyed that process. But there's also something for me that's like so like oh my favorite songs
yeah.
play for.
Did you work with the composer? Like, did you know that you were going to get a composer before you shot, or was it in post you realized, like, oh, I can work with this composer?
Yeah, I kind of thought about it. I was like, maybe we'll need music. We'll see. And then in the edit, I think my DP and I were just watching it. We're like, yeah, we could. There's definitely, kind of took inspiration from like White Lotus and Shiva Baby a little bit. They have like weird percussion-y, unsettling, kind of offbeat, twangy stuff that,
Yeah,
again, I don't have a musical vocabulary. I really don't. That was definitely something that was tough working with a composer because I would just make noises. I'd just
yeah,
feel yeah, and kind of like a dun here and a, like a dun here, and you knew what I was talking about. It was fine. Um, but yeah, I expressed myself through those musically through those just recreating the noises I think should work. But yeah, it was really cool, and I have a really good composer. I mean, it's still in posts, and I'm still kind of fiddling with sound and music. Sound editing is hard. But yeah, it's cool working with a composer. I like it.
yeah.
It's fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, that's yeah. That's kind of all my questions. Um, you kind of already gave advice for younger filmmakers. Um,
Yeah.
I don't have any more. I just like telling students don't run on set, please. I think that's important. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think advice wise, again, like totally establishing, spending a lot of time with your actors is again, I really want to emphasize that. But I think on set too, you just have to, I don't know, I think ego has to go out the door, especially at this level. Um, I don't know, I, I've every single person I've like even I've learned so much from like everybody, even about roles that I don't haven't really been in. I don't know, you can just learn so much, and everybody's like moving around and trying different things, and like it's important for you to do the same. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to just on set to just, I mean, I think it's fun. I think it is really fun, and I think sometimes people lose sight of that a little bit. And then if you're having fun and everything's lighthearted and cool and good, then everyone's more pumped to work, I think, and they like want to work, you know, instead of like a dictatorship or something.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say
don't know what
it sounds like through the interview that you've talked about like you have to like let things go and kind of like guide things, but it doesn't sound like you're like, okay, let's do another one better this time. Like, let's that doesn't sound like your working method.
no, no, yeah. But and that was something I have struggled with too, maybe being too like, being like a little bit like, oh, it's fine, we'll move on. Because, I try not, I always try to always get what I want. Like I try to push to keep going, but I'm not gonna do so in a mean way. I don't know. But yeah, I have struggled with that though, because if you're too nice, then you might not get what you want. So it's definitely finding a balance, but I just think you can be a leader and you can be assertive and you can do all these things and you can also just maintain a good energy, I think.
Yeah. Okay. This is actually the last question.
Yeah.
So like in this modern digital age, like a lot of short films end up like on YouTube, but like what's been your experience of like screening your films and like how has that like been? Like how's that experience been? Seeing it with like an audience.
Oh my God, it's the best. Oh yeah, I definitely feel like I'm gonna die like right before it happens. But but then I think that knowing the humor lands is so important to me and like hearing an audience like because again if you like show it to your I don't know isn't there like a study that shows like people are more likely to laugh as a in a group or something like in an audience in a theater. I don't know, maybe there's not a
Sounds
study,
right.
could have made that up also, but I think that's a thing, at least in my experience, even just personally. I think people all collectively engage in the humor a little bit more in a theater, and like that was really satisfying to know. And like sometimes people laugh at stuff that I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize like I knew something was peculiar or off-putting or strange, but it's awesome to hear like that like amuses some. I don't know, getting like live reactions is it's nerve-wracking, but it's like it can establish so much for you and like what you've accomplished. Oh, I've made people like upset here. I've made people like, you want to like the whole point is to get react like have people react or like feel or and to see it is like the treat 100%. And at Lowell Film Festival, because I was driving from Boston and we had like a van or my friend's van, but like it had like tires were had alarms alerts or something, and I it was like I can't getting to your festival was like a whole saga in and of itself. But so I arrived, but I think I was the opening
Yeah,
film
you
and
were.
I missed it.
Oh my God.
So I saw all the other films, all great. I loved it, but it was really funny that the one I missed was my own. So
Damn.
I didn't see that with that community, but I did get to screen it at my school, and so I did get to see reactions there. But it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's the whole going to a theater, going to a screening experience is one of the best parts of the biz, I'd say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks Elle for coming on the show or being interviewed. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for talking to me. And yeah, I mean, this hour flew.